大家好，欢迎收看今天的全球瞭望，我是郭崇伦。我们今天要谈南北韩以及环绕在朝鲜半岛的相关问题。我们特别邀请到韩国延世大学的教授，也是南韩总统国家安全的特别顾问文正仁教授。Mr. Moon Jong-in, Special Advisor for Foreign Affairs and National Security to the President. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for your invitation.
First of all, I want to ask you, there seems to be quite a distance between the U.S. and North Korea regarding the denuclearization issues. But now, after National Security Advisor John Bolton had left office, people are saying the gap seems to be narrowing. What's your thinking on this?
In a sense, there was a narrowing of the gap between Washington and Pyongyang. But on two issues, there is a huge gap between the two. One issue is the scope of denuclearization.
Right.
America hasn't really given up its policy of making North Korea dismantle nuclear first and rewarding later. Okay, but North Korean position has been very clear that there should be incremental, simultaneous exchange based on the principle of action for action. Therefore, and under the scope of denuclearization, there is a big difference between the two countries. Another issue is in the corresponding measures, what the U.S. can provide to North Korea in case then North Korea goes for denuclearization. I think American position has been much more incremental, like lifting very limited sanctions like coal and textile exports, resumption of humanitarian assistance, and some form of trust building, such as adoption of end of war declaration kinds of things. But North Korea want more than that. Therefore, I would say that there are two major differences. One is scope of denuclearization. Second is corresponding measures.
And that is the reason why they did not work out in the working level talks in Sweden just 1 or 2 weeks ago back then. And now the North Koreans seem to say that they will set up a deadline by the end of this year. And do you think that they can reach somewhat like a compromise before it's only 2 months from now, right?
Yeah, but I don't know yet. I don't know yet. And I think President Trump is making every effort to come up with some kinds of deal that can satisfy North Korea. But I don't know whether he can. United States of America is a democratic country.
Right.
Even though President is committed, there's all bureaucratic processes and congressional opposition. And if you take all those things into account, it may not be easy for President Trump to deliver what North Korea wants. And also on the part of North Korea, it should be really committed to, denuclearizing, okay? And therefore, then North Korea should send some positive signals that it is willing to, and it is, in fact, dismantling some of the nuclear, the facilities, materials and weapons. Therefore, there is a lack of trust between Washington and Pyongyang. Therefore, both sides need take some kinds of initial actions as a way of building trust.
Some people are saying that it's not really realistic to hope that the North Korea can really abandoning all its nuclear program, including the nuclear weapons. So the real focus should be concentrating on non-proliferation issues. So that is the core of the whole negotiation.
No, I don't agree with you. Then that means what? We should treat North Korea as a ninth nuclear weapon state. But South Korean people will not accept it.
Okay.
That being the case, then a lot of South Koreans will be arguing for the possession of independent nuclear power and weapons capability. Therefore, I don't agree with that idea. Yes, non-proliferation is important, but what is important is actual denuclearization of North Korea and the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But I don't buy that argument.
Let me bring to the role of South Korea. President Moon Jae-in had been saying that South Korea is on the driving seat, that which had shown itself to be a very valuable role when South Korea provided momentum and channel during the previous two summits, both in Singapore and Hanoi. But do you think South Korea can still play that role? Or put it in the other way, is South Korea been sidelining in the recent process?
Yeah, we studied with the role of kind of mediator, because March last year, our special envoys visited to Pyongyang, and they got a message from Chairman Kim Jong-un and conveyed it to President Trump.
Right.
And that was the beginning of so-called US-DPRK talks. Therefore, in the sense, we played the role of a mediator, and also we have been playing the role of facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But North Korea has rejected our role as a mediator because simply South Korea and the United States are allies,
right,
and allies on the same side. Therefore, North Koreans have been arguing that South Korea is an ally of the United States, and how can you play a role of so-called neutral, objective, arbitrator or mediator? And then our government position, yes, then we want to play a role of facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our government has opened up the channels of communication between the U.S. and North Korea.
Right.
And then we'll try to influence the United States in such a way that the U.S. can have a more constructive talks with North Korea. In the sense we have been playing role of facilitator. But I really don't buy that argument we're sidelined. Of course, United States, and of course, North Korea was very unhappy about our behavior because we have been too closely cooperating with the United States, and we have not delivered what North Korea wants, such as the resumption of Kaesong Industrial Complex or resumption of Mount Kumgang Choice Project. Therefore, North Korea is very angry about it. But our government's calculation is very simple. Unless we are in good terms with the United States and influence the United States in such a way to facilitate U.S.-DPRK relations, okay, then there won't be no progress. Okay?
Right.
Therefore, in other words, right now, inter-Korean relations have been very much subject to the U.S.-DPRK talks. It's sad, but it's an unavoidable process. Okay? But let us assume that the South Korea taking sides with North Korea. A lot of South Koreans will oppose. U.S. will be mad, and nothing will go.
But is it true that it used to be South Korea providing the access to Washington, but now all of a sudden Pyongyang is building up its own channel of communication with Washington? That means that there's no need for South Korea. Is that make South Korea
No,
very
not
awkward
necessarily,
position?
because look, President Trump will not give any single penny to North Korea.
Right,
Okay?
that's
if
true.
there got to be some kinds of incentives and corresponding measures to North Korea, the great chunk of those incentives will come from South Korea. Economic cooperation, okay, and infrastructure development, mobilization of international capital. North Korea needs South Korean help in doing that. Therefore, right now, our government has made it very clear as to nuclear issue, there is deal between Pyongyang and Washington. But other than nuclear issues, we have lots of things to provide to North Korea. Therefore, we cannot be sidelined. We are an integral part of entire negotiation process.
So that's the talks about partial lifting of economic sanctions that also include the resumption of the King Kong tourist sites program and also the Kaesong industrial zone. Is that the possible way to provide an incentive for the North Korea to come back to the negotiation table?
I think so. What a partial incentive, okay? Because if you look at the New Year speech by Chairman Kim Jong-un, he made it very clear that I wanted to resume the Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mount Kumgang Choice project within this year, okay, for whatever at whatever coast and regions. Therefore, he's committed to that one, but we haven't delivered it. That is why North Korea is not happy with South Korea.
Why there's information about that Chairman Kim Jong-un asking the South Korea to demolish some of the tourist site building. He said it's too ugly, building on Mountain King Kong. How do you interpret that kind of remarks by him?
I think it's his, expression of his dissatisfaction with the South Korean side.
Not coming back to the program.
I think that he initially assumed that the resumption of Mount Kumgang Choice project, because as to the Mount Kumgang Choice project, the one important issue related to sanction is the transfer of bulk cash. But if we allow individual citizens to visit to Mount Kumgang, there won't be any violation of UN Security Council sanction resolutions. Therefore, we could do it, but we have been somewhat, cautious, and partly because of American pressure. But now I think our government should make a decision whether we should go ahead or not. Of course, to that we need to have a very close consultation with the United States.
If there's going to be, it seems to be a stalemate right now, and we still have about 2 months left till the end of this month. Seems that both sides seem to be thinking time is on their side. From the North Korean perspective, they think that President Trump had the election to run, that he will have to bring the results of this negotiation before November next year. And then from the Washington thing, that they think that the sanction is really working, that is hurting the North Korean economy. Which argument is true in this regard?
Time is on nobody's side, because end result would be worst outcome.
Okay.
A major crisis escalation on the Korean Peninsula. Neither side will get benefit from that one. Therefore, both North Korea and the United States come to the negotiation table, and have a negotiation and produce more tangible outcomes. Otherwise, everybody will be loser, and particularly South Korea will be very innocent victim in this confrontation.
There's rumors that it's possible that the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un might visit and attend the ASEAN Special Summit in Busan at the end of November. Do you think that's still possible?
We are hoping, he would visit. Because if you go back to September last year, President Moon Jae-in and Chairman Kim Jong-un adopted the Pyongyang Declaration.
Right.
And in that declaration, Chairman Kim Jong-un pledged that he will make a return visit to Seoul. Therefore, he should deliver his promise. And then, if he visit, if he makes a return visit to Seoul, and if his visit can be synchronized with the Busan Asian Special Summit Conference, that will be very good for us. Okay? That can be one way of normalizing excellent relations of North Korea.
Do you think there's still opposition coming from the South Korean opposition party? Would that constitute an obstacle for his visit?
Yeah, that could be an obstacle. We have a quite considerable conservative, forces in South Korea. But of course, the president, it represents the Republic of Korea. If Chairman Kim Jong-un decides to visit South Korea, and I think President Moon will go ahead. And also, public opinion very strongly support his return visit. According to some survey, those who support his return visit to Seoul exceed more than 60%. Therefore, I would say the majority of South Korean people would support his return visit.
Finally, with this process of negotiation, and then they're hoping that it would turn out a denuclearization of North Korea, the countries that a lot of Asian countries are interested in exploring the relationship with the North Korea, that include Taiwan. How do you think that Taiwan can contribute in this whole negotiation process, or the eventually opening up of the North Korea?
But I think that Taiwan has maintained a very good relationship with North Korea in a sense, particularly private sector. Taiwanese private sector has been cultivating very good ties with North Korea. But if if the North Korean nuclear problem is resolved, and if North Korea goes through the process of opening reform and marketization, and I think Taiwan will be one of the great beneficiaries. And you have experience, you have capital, you have good manpower, so that you can have really better relations with North Korea.
And Seoul is not objecting to this private business relations between Taiwan and Pyongyang?
Seoul does not object at all. In fact, Seoul would welcome that kind of relations. Okay? Particularly if sanctions are lifted,
right.
And I think that a lot of countries will be trying to have a business with North Korea, and Taiwan will be one of those countries.
We're going to take a short break, and coming back, we're going to talk about the regional situation. 我们等一下回来，我们继续跟文正仁教授来谈地区的相关的问题。